Chapter 521 The Undead Burial Mount. Mo Fan was a grassroots magician, and had not joined any faction so far. As a result, when he learned from Dean Xiao that he had a spot in the World College Tournament, he did not show any reaction. Later, as the selection for the World College Tournament began, he finally realized how incredible it was to be selected as a provisional candidate. The opportunity was priceless. Mo Fan, who was still climbing his way up the ranking, suddenly found himself being flattered. Yet, he was feeling more worry than joy. However, he was someone who took things as they came. Despite the noise around him, he continued to focus on his cultivation. After defeating the 10th-ranked Ding Yumian, he now had the chance to cultivate for 7 days in the 3-step tower every month. His summoning element was still at the first level, so the energy available to feed the kid was nowhere enough. He had to improve it to the next level, so the energy was sufficient to feed his little flame bell. Once his little flame bell grew up, would Mo Fan still need to care about the envy and mockery of others? He would simply let the little flame bell bite whoever doubted him. Those idiots, not focusing on their cultivation, but defaming him instead, were just jealous because he was making a living off his face. Mo Fan did not care too much about the nonsense. He stayed well behaved at school, and focused on improving his cultivation. There were many students in the school who had half their foot into the advanced level. Meanwhile, the threshold of the advanced level was still not within his reach. How long would it take for him to become an advanced magician, gaining him access to the stronger advanced spells? As autumn arrived, the winds in the middle region of China began to chill. The area within 100 kilometers of the ancient capital was covered in withered grass. The whole place looked dull over its vast area, with not a hint of color. TL note: the ancient capital might be referring to Xi'an, once known as Chang'an. The ancient capital was covered in a mix of gray, brown, and copper tones. Some of the brighter structures were glossed over. The city had paths leading straight to the center, each widening as it approached the center of the place, radiating symmetrically from the clock tower. The magic association of the ancient capital was established in the clock tower. The location of the magic association was always a landmark for each city, or more precisely, the landmarks were always occupied by the magic association. As a result, the ancient capital still had a huge population crowding its streets. The Hunter Union was located at the drum tower, only 1,000 meters away from the magic association. The two towers stood by one another across the distance, like two giant statues guarding the city. The military's camp was outside of the city. There were many threats in the vicinity of the ancient capital. The world-famous undead burial mount and the demon beasts in Kinling Mountains had kept the entire city on its toes for generations. It was said that whether in the city or outside it, one would surely find corpses after digging 100 meters into the ground. Corpses were not a problem, since they were only the remains of warriors who had died in battles in ancient times. The problem were those clinging to the past despite having turned into skeletons. The undead had no memory of their past, nor did they have consciences. They merely had savagery similar to beasts, and a natural instinct to kill. They would lunge crazily at anything alive within a certain distance. As such, the Hunter Union, Magic Association, and Army were entrusted with an eternal mission, to help the undead with their transgressions. Zhang Xiaohou left Shanghai in a hurry. As soon as he arrived at the headquarters in Lintong, he was immediately sent out on an annihilation mission. It had been a while since Zhang Xiaohou was sent to the middle region for training. He was responsible for surveillance, learning from the experienced soldiers, and focusing on improving his cultivation. Even though the army did send him on a few missions, none of them were particularly difficult. Zhang Xiaohou received orders as soon as he landed. It was a rescue operation, to retrieve a scouting squad stranded in Xianxi. The squad had departed around half a month ago, to investigate some restless recent activity in Xianxi. In addition to checking out the rate of growth of the undead, they were also ordered to evacuate the remaining villages around the area. The people living in this region shared the same land as the undead. Even though they were not magicians, they had their own traditional ways of avoiding contact with the undead. Some of the fearless tribes even relied on the land of the undead to keep their villages going. It was not rare to find these tribes in the current era, some of which had existed for almost 1,000 years. The undead was just like ordinary beasts to these tribes. With the right methods, even if the undead were extremely savage and killing anything in sight, the people were able to guarantee their own safety. Lately, the odd behavior of the drifting sand river had somehow triggered a weird trend. The creatures sleeping under the ground had been quite active during the past month. Being more active resulted in more killing. The weird behavior of the drifting sand river somehow made the land of the undead lose its usual calm. Many of the villages that had relied on their traditional methods to live among the undead had faced utter destruction. 4 of them had been wiped off the map during this period. The Magic Association and Hunter Union were treating the matter with extreme care. They immediately sent out people to investigate. Once they analyzed the situation and determined it to be dangerous, they would immediately evacuate the villages nearby. However, the scouting squad had discovered a weird wind sweeping the area around Xianxi. Despite being sent to investigate the place and evacuate the villages, they suddenly went missing in action. Even though Zhang Xiaohou was being sent on a rescue operation, the squad had already been missing for almost 2 months. Basically, the rescue team's job was to verify the cause of death of the squad, and retrieve their corpses, then report back to the Magic Association and Hunter Union. What are our superiors thinking, sending us off on an operation like this? We're asked to look for a scouting squad that's been missing over 2 months. What were they doing earlier? Cursed the team's scout, Wang Tong. Zhang Xiaohu's team consisted of 9 people. Unlike the usual structure of a team led by a commander, it was more like a spec ops team. The team was formed by outstanding soldiers entrusted to carry out difficult missions, like special forces. Everyone in the team was capable of being a commander. The team had 2 scouts responsible for scouting the path ahead, luring the demon beasts away, and disrupting their enemies' groups. Zhang Xiaohou was one of the scouts, and Wang Tong was the other. Wang Tong and Zhang Xiaohou were ahead of the rest of the team. Wang Tong was full of complaints. He had been swearing non-stop to Zhang Xiaohou since the team departed. Qin Hu is definitely enjoying himself on the Heavenly Eagle. He doesn't even need to talk, said Wang Tong, raising his head and glancing at the snowy white Heavenly Eagle soaring above them. Qin Hu was the team's captain and commander, who was also a Heavenly Eagle battle mage. The others had no choice but to walk, while he was able to ride the Heavenly Eagle. Stop talking, or you can tell the superior that you want to quit and are willing to bear the punishment. Otherwise, you should just focus on completing the mission, instead of talking non-stop. Zhang Xiaohou was slightly more positive. I just like to grumble. If I don't grumble for a day, I'll feel extremely uncomfortable, protested Wang Tong. Chapter 522 read across the map. Hello, Brother Fan. You're asking about Boss Zon Kong? I don't know either. I had completely forgotten about him if you hadn't mentioned him. I haven't heard from him for a long time. I'm in the middle of a mission, so I won't be able to contact him for some time, but I heard that he went missing after returning to Bo City with the Darkwing Wolf's head. Alright, I'll call you immediately if I hear anything from him, but I will be on a mission for some time. I don't know when I'll be back at headquarters. How's the Flame Bell doing? I'm fine. I'm the best at running in the whole team. How could I possibly not outrun my enemy if I can't beat them in a fight? We're all soldiers, so none of us will desert the others. Those who manage to make it back safely will report on the situation back to headquarters. Even if the others are dead, I'll still be fine. Zhang Xiaohou was talking to Mo Fan with his earpiece. They had not arrived at the area around Xianxi yet, thus they were not required to stay on high alert. After hanging up on the call, Wang Tong glanced at him with a gloomy look and blurted out unpleasantly, "Who were you cursing to be dead? I can guarantee that if someone's going to lose their life on this mission, it will be you for sure." Hee, I was just using it as an example, said Zhang Xiaohou, scratching his head. You can't even use it as an example. Who's the guy on the phone? I heard you call him brother. Didn't you say you're an only child? Wang Tong continued on with the conversation in boredom. We grew up on the same street. He's just like my brother, looking after me since I was little, even now, said Zhang Xiaohou. You're a soldier, talented among the intermediate magicians. Why do you sound like you're still a kid, being looked after? Said Wang Tong. He's a lot stronger than me. All right, we've got plenty of those talented maniacs in the army, yet none of them were able to clean up these filthy things. The 9-man team gradually made their way toward Xianxi. Xianxi was merely the name of a place where there were rarely any plants on the surface. The soil was soft, and usually covered in thin white sand. The white sand was in fact the dust from corpses that had undergone long exposure to the sun and wind. It looked exactly the same as salt sprinkled over the ground. The locals did not call it salt literally, but referred to the place as the salty land. TL note: Xianxi in Chinese means salty pond. Apparently, in some Chinese poems, it refers to a pond where beautiful girls bathed during ancient times. Xianxi was the land between the Qinling Mountains and Xi'an territory. Since the place was slightly sunken, it looked like a pond on the map, hence it was called Xianxi, salty pond. A lengthy safe zone was constructed along the northeast border of Xianxi. Usually, the safe zone mostly consisted of boundaries set up with fortresses, depots, watchtowers, and supply stations, with cooperation between the army, hunters, and magic association guarding the boundary. However, the demon beasts in the vicinity of the ancient capital were fairly different, so the safe zone of the ancient capital was not very stable, only consisting of a long wall around the boundary area. The wall, constructed by earth magicians, served as a layer of defense. As the walls were moved around quite often according to the activity of the undead, some of the villages that were initially within the safe zone would suddenly be excluded from it at times. If a village was located along the coastline in the south or north, it was extremely dangerous to be outside of the safe zone. The village would be trampled to ashes within a few years, leaving not a single survivor behind. Meanwhile, the villages located on the edge around the ancient capital had their unique methods of avoiding the undead. Hence, there were still villages outside of the safe zone, quite a lot of them, actually. These villages were commonly referred to as the villages of miracles by the magic associations in other countries, since the villagers were utterly fearless, living outside of the safe zone. Our first destination is here, the Sunny Goat Village. It's located around the foothills of the Qinling Mountains, with around 30 villagers. Captain Qin Hu had come down from the sky holding a seemingly new map in his hand. It was extremely important to get their hands on the latest maps if possible, as only the new maps contained information about the recent changes to the landscape in the area. As for old maps, 11 out of 10 would result in a trap. The name of the village sounds quite cheerful, said the naughty kid in the team, Lu Hongjing. Enough with the nonsense, Qin Hu straightened his face, not giving the others a chance to express their comments. The Sunny Goat Village is around 4 kilometers away from here. The sun is setting soon. Shouldn't we think of a plan? Proposed the female battle mage in the team, Shi Xiaoju. Let's go straight to the village. I don't think it's that complicated. Are you telling me we can't handle a bunch of weaklings? We'll just kill every single one of them when they appear, said Lu Hongjing. Don't be naive. Did you forget that this place has already been inspected before? It's categorized as an orange zone. Qin Hu was obviously a cautious leader, and immediately spoke up sternly when he saw his team dropping their guard. It's just orange zone. I spent lots of time roaming the red zones, interrupted Wang Tong. The people of the Hunter Union were in charge of discovering the distribution of the demon beasts in the area, and tagged the areas with different colors to represent the density of demon beasts. The higher the density of demon beasts in the area, the stronger the color used to tag it. The colors started from white to orange, then red, and finally black, correlating to the color of alerts. Green was used to tag the areas in a safe zone. White meant there were only a few demon beasts roaming in the area. An orange zone implied that there were packs of demon beasts residing in the area, so it belonged to a dangerous zone. Only experienced hunters, special squads, and powerful magicians were allowed to enter the area. Red, or simply a blood-colored zone, represented death. It was extremely easy to be flanked by packs of demon beasts, as the number of demon beasts in the area was like a surging tide. There was still purple between red and black. A red zone referred to a kingdom of demon beasts. Even super magicians had no chance of making it back alive from a purple zone. As for a black zone, any life form was forbidden within it. No one had ever gone to a black zone before, and it seemed like even the demon beasts did not dare to enter one, either. Green, white, orange, red, purple, black. There were 6 colors in total, and the last 4 correlated to the 4 types of alerts. The red alert that Bow City was placed under was the 2nd level alert for a city. The ancient capital was located near the Kingdom of Undead, hence it was the city with the most alerts raised in the entire country. The alert was so common to the residents of the city that it was simply treated as an alarm to wake them up every morning. Those who were drinking tea continued to enjoy their tea, those gossiping continued to gossip, and those who were responsible for protecting the city made their way to the battlefield. That being said, due to the unique traits of the region, when the sun was high up in the sky, the electronic map only displayed green and white zones, and occasionally an orange zone when the beasts from Kindling Mountains got lost and trespassed into the zone. However, as soon as the sun set into the horizon, when the light protecting the land was withdrawn, all the zones across the map, apart from the safe zone of the ancient capital, were turned entirely red. Once night fell, humans no longer reigned across the land. Currently, the special team from Lintong headquarters was outside of the safe zone. The final glimpse of sunlight had disappeared, leaving the scent of death lingering in the air nearby. A strange noise was heard coming from under the white-covered ground. It sounded like someone munching on something, or something beating. Zhang Xiaohou was the first person to step into the land of the undead. He was extremely nervous, his alert scanning his surroundings. All of a sudden, pairs of dried, rotten arms poked out from the ground and began to wave and grab wildly in the air, less than 5 meters away from him. Chapter 523 Ambushed by the Walking Dead. My leg, someone began to scream suddenly. The cry of agony echoed in the darkness which had just descended upon the place. Zhang Xiaohou turned around and discovered Lu Hongjing standing right on top of a pile of rotten arms, which were holding tightly onto his legs. The hands grabbing onto Lu Hongjing's feet were as strong as steel, totally impairing his movement. The rotten hands and claws were scratching and tearing at Lu Hongjing's legs. One of the corpses that was seriously starving sprang out from the ground and stuck its head onto Lu Hongjing's hamstring and bit it. The group was unable to react in time. When they finally realized they should be saving the poor lad, all that remained under Lu Hongjing's knees were bloody white bones. He was falling backward in extreme pain. "Don't fall," yelled the Captain Chen Hu. Once Lu Hongjing fell to the ground, he would turn into a pile of bones. The bites and scratches of the corpses were faster than a school of piranhas. Earth Wave! Zhang Xiaohou was the first to react. He quickly cast the spell. He manipulated the soil in the area and utilized the second characteristic of the flowing mud to turn the soft soil into solid rock. The flowing mud was able to turn soil into swamp or quicksand to entrap his targets and impair their movement. When reversed, it was able to harden the soil into rocks, too. Zhang Xiaohou forcibly turned the ground Lu Hongjing was standing on into solid rocks, trapping the claws of the corpses and stopping them from moving freely. His Earth Seed was extremely effective in a situation like this. The claws stopped attacking Lu Hongjing and started smashing the suddenly solid soil instead. Lu Hongjing finally hit his limit and fell to the ground. Luckily, he was lying on the hardened soil. Otherwise, he would have instantly lost his life. "Save him," Chen Hu ordered Wang Tong. Wang Tong was stunned for a second, before quickly dashing toward Lu Hongjing. The bones below Lu Hongjing's knees no longer had any flesh. Wang Tong straightaway carried him back to the team. The cries of the undead, which sounded like their mouths were filled with soil, rose once again as their eerie heads poked out from the ground. Their bloodshot eyes were glaring at the 9 living humans. The scent of blood had driven them berserk, and they could not wait to break out from the ground and enjoy their meal. The buried undead mostly looked like humans. The ancient capital had gone through lots of dynasties and huge wars between humans and demon beasts. The number of humans who died here significantly surpassed that of demon beasts. With all the deaths in the area, the ground was no longer made of ordinary soil, but filled with a deathly aura that nurtured the dead. Once the sun disappeared, the undead would poke out from the ground like the shoots of fertilized plants. Even if they were destroyed, they would rise again after the next season arrived. Due to some unknown curse that the land was under, both the demon beasts and the humans that died here would resemble humans after they turned into the undead. Even though they had bones of the demon beasts, the bones would somehow be structured into a weird-looking skeleton giant. Their head was still the same head of the demon beast that was half rotting under the ground, but their bones would be rearranged into the shape of a human. Some looked like a beast with a rotten body and 4 limbs standing on the ground, yet the head was a rotting human head. Either way, the undead would do all they could to assemble their dead body parts into a human figure, be it half human, half beast, or the combination of a few dead bodies, or a giant human corpse made purely from the bones of demon beasts. The undead that the group of 9 had bumped into so far all had the appearance of humans. It was most likely due to the villagers that had died here lately. The nutrients in the ground had stacked up, so as soon as their new bodies were constructed, they immediately burst out from the ground and attacked their prey. "Kid, nice reaction speed. You managed to save this overconfident guy," Chin Hu said to Zhang Xiaohou. Zhang Xiaohou forced a smile on his face. It was all possible because of the earth seed he acquired at Shijiao Valley, the flowing mud. Zhang Xiaohou was able to suppress anything coming out from the ground with it. "Let's move forward. We'll be safer once we reach the Sunny Goat Village. These things took us by surprise by showing up before the place was completely dark. Perhaps the thick aura of death has blocked off the remaining sunlight," said the female battle mage, Shi Xiaoju. The team did not have a healer, hence the others could only wrap his legs up to stop the bleeding. Lu Hongjing lost a significant amount of blood, so it was important to treat his wounds as soon as possible. The serums they had brought with them could merely help him last a little longer. If they dragged the time out, not only would Lu Hongjing die due to excessive loss of blood, he would simply be killed by the poison from the undead. "I'll lead the way," volunteered Zhang Xiaohou bravely. "All right, your soul seed is able to slow them down when they try to come out from the ground." "Holy crap, lots of undead are heading toward us. Why are there so many? Even a red zone would not have this many undead when night has just arrived. It's most likely that lots of people died nearby recently." The team took some time to prepare themselves. Although the ambush had taken them by surprise, everyone quickly calmed down and started drawing various star patterns under their feet. The energies of the ice, fire, lightning, and wind elements lunged at the filthy creatures and utterly destroyed them. Forest of Kun. The female battle mage Shi Xiaoju was a plant magician. As the path ahead was blocked by a pack of a dozen walking corpses, Shi Xiaoju quickly cast the intermediate plant spell to entrap them. The branches from the Forest of Kun immediately wrapped around the undead and formed a thick cage. The undead had a limited level of intelligence. They simply tried to bite anything that they came across, resulting in a weird scene similar to the game Plant vs. Zombies, where the zombies were biting through the walnuts. The only difference was, the zombies were not as lost and adorable as those in the game. The appearance of the savage creatures was, well, ghastly. They would simply chew any person nearby into bones, something that Lu Hongjing had already experienced firsthand. "Let's go, it's impossible to kill them all," yelled Shi Xiaoju when she saw the team was still trying to eliminate the creatures. The team quickly withdrew their spells and followed behind Zhang Xiaohou. As Zhang Xiaohou led the way, the soil of the area he walked on would simply harden instantly, preventing someone from being dragged into the soil again. It was still 4 kilometers away from the village. They should be able to arrive safely if they moved at full speed. The villagers had their ways of avoiding contact with the undead. Once they arrived at the village, they would be able to escape being surrounded by the creatures. Chapter 524 Hatchet Corpse General. Magic Vine. Entangle. Shi Xiaoju's hands were agile as she waved them around. Flexible vines were summoned instantly around her, turning into sturdy ropes entangling the legs of the giant creature before her. They were nowhere near the village, and the zombies had managed to surround them. Now, the squad of 9 was fighting for their lives. The enormous creature leading the zombies had a body similar to a giant ox. The rotten flesh on its body was falling to the ground, from which wriggling worms burst out. Plague-bearing worms crawled toward the soldiers. The magic vines had trapped the creature's legs, but its hatchet-like arms hacked down wildly. The impact almost broke the ground open. Brown rock barriers were established around the soldiers in an arc to protect them, but the situation did not look favorable. Lots of undead were breaking their way through the barrier to reach their prey on the other side. Their sharp claws were able to slice through the stone like it was mud. They almost broke through the rock barrier. The rotting corpses had no sense of pain. Some even slammed their skulls into the rock barrier, resulting in their heads falling apart and their brains splattering everywhere. However, their claws continued to dig through the stone. Zhang Xiaohu's forehead was covered in sweat. He had encountered many kinds of demon beasts before, savage, cunning, and cold-blooded, but this was his first time encountering a demented horde like these walking corpses. The corpses had no sense of pain, no consciousness, no fear. They were merely chasing and tearing apart any living things nearby. Their only weakness was sunlight, but the day had fallen dark a few moments ago. By the time the sunlight came, their group would have turned into more undead. What should we do? Once these things break through our defense, we'll simply be slaughtered by that giant corpse, yelled Wang Tong. Similar to demon beasts, the undead were also categorized into servant class, warrior level, commander level, and ruler level. The undead attacking them were only the common zombie undead. They were most likely dead for less than 10 years. Their buried bodies had not fully rotted yet. The rank of the zombie undead was the lowest, the servant class, yet their numbers were overwhelming. They always attacked their prey in groups, so it was extremely dangerous to stumble into them in the wild. Within the groups of zombies, those that were buried longer and had absorbed more essence of death would evolve into generals among the walking corpses. The huge creature with a body of a strong ox, a tiny head, and limbs like hatchets was an infamous corpse general. It was categorized as a warrior-level creature, yet it was definitely stronger than an ordinary warrior-level demon beast. Normally, it was possible to inflict damage on demon beasts. When their legs were attacked, it would affect their speed and movement. If their limbs were attacked, it would weaken their attack. If their critical parts were damaged, their body would become weak and force them to retreat. However, there was no such thing as being injured for these corpses. Even when destructive spells penetrated their abdomens or blasted their limbs apart, they were still mobile as long as there was still energy in the body parts. Even a broken arm on the ground would still rise on its own and grab onto its prey. A corpse general was able to take on 3 warrior-level demon beasts because of this. Most importantly, this particular one they had stumbled into turned out to be a superior corpse general, which had been nurtured in this land for more than 10 years. Trying to fight against it was no different than asking for death. Even if they managed to kill the corpse general by teaming up, they would still be bitten to death by the horde of hundreds of zombies surrounding them. They had no choice but to run. There was slightly over a kilometer left until they reached Sunny Goat Village. They were able to see the wooden fences around the village once they crossed the little hill before them. They had to escape from these filthy creatures. Sink, you bastards! Flowing mud, earth wave. Zhang Xiaohu's hands glowed brown. He channeled the spell for quite some time, stacking up a few earth spells on top of one another, before slamming the energy into the ground. The 9 of them were all in the same area. Everywhere apart from the ground they were standing on suddenly became slimy. They could easily tell that the soft soil had turned into mud, and some even had the shape of a whirlpool. Anything standing on mud would naturally sink, and together with the spinning and sinking motion, it was similar to quicksand. A huge number of zombies were now half sunken into the ground. When Zhang Xiaohou had arrived at the ancient capital, he immediately sold the diamond he found at the Burning Valley and bought himself an Earth Element magic tool. It allowed him to stack up his basic Earth spell to a certain degree before releasing it, multiplying the effects of Earth Wave. Although it would take a longer time to channel, it was more effective than casting the same spell many times. The Earth Wave cast with the Earth Seed Flowing Mud had a shocking outcome. As lots of the zombies sank into the mud, Zhang Xiaohou immediately hardened the ground to stop them from coming back up. In the end, the zombies were stuck in the ground with half their bodies on the surface and half below. They could neither rise to the surface nor sink into the ground. The group was overjoyed. As they were about to give some compliments, Shi Xiaoju screamed, "Run, quick!" The corpse general had already broken through the last line of defense. Due to its enormous size, the muck produced by the flowing mud seed could barely cover its ankles. Even when the mud turned as hard as concrete, it was nowhere enough to hinder its movement. Blood splattered as its hatchet swung wildly. It was impossible to tell who was injured in the midst of the chaos. They could only take hold of the chance to run down the hill. The furious roar of the hatchet corpse general rose behind them. The soldiers felt a chill running down their spines as they felt the gust of it sweeping across their back. However, no one dared to turn around. They could only run with all their might. Under the icy brilliance of the moon, they could vaguely see black shadows charging in their direction while uttering hungry cries. Unlike the slow-moving zombies in the movies, both the corpse general and the zombies were extremely fast while their legs were still intact. A magician running at full speed would still be easily caught by them without relying on movement spells or boots equipment. In addition to that, their jumping ability was shocking. They could easily leap over 10 meters, even the servant-class zombies. As such, the undeads chasing after the group were not slowly dragging their legs, but sprinting and leaping like wild beasts. Oh! A painful screech came from behind. It seemed like someone was caught by the undead, resulting in a cry for help. "Forget them. If not, our whole squad will be wiped out," ordered Captain Chin Hu mercilessly. The group did not dare to turn around. They could only hope that the one caught was not a friend. "She's not dead yet." Zhang Xiaohou turned around and saw the person to be the other battle maga in their group, Jia Shi. The battle maga Jia Shi was entangled by the long tongue of the corpse general. She was an ice magician, hence she barely sealed off the corpse general's movement with ice lock. Otherwise, the corpse general would simply have swallowed her with one bite.